Hey there, travelers. Before we dive into tonight's story, drop a comment below telling us where you're tuning in from. Now let's begin our journey into the unknown. The dimensional shift felt wrong immediately. The usual 3-second disorientation stretched into 20 as my atoms reassembled in Antarctica's frigid atmosphere. My equipment registered -40 degrees, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. But something else was wrong. Smoke. Billowing black clouds rising from the Norwegian research station half a mile ahead. My name is Dr. Samuel Grady. I'm a biologist specializing in synthetic virology for the Dimensional Reconnaissance Initiative, a program that doesn't officially exist on any government ledger. Our mission: collect biological samples from parallel timelines before they diverge beyond recovery. This assignment was meant to be straightforward. Slip into this reality days before discovery of the specimen, extract a pristine sample from the ice, and depart without a trace. Simple, clean, safe. But the burning outpost told me something had gone catastrophically wrong. I checked my temporal gauge. 4 days too late. 4 days. In this timeline, that might as well be an eternity. I adjusted my thermal gear and approached cautiously. The closer I got, the more apparent the devastation became. Buildings torn apart from the inside, blood staining the pristine snow in arterial sprays, and the silence, the absolute absence of human sounds, replaced only by the hungry crackle of flames consuming the remaining structures. I knew what they'd found here. I'd studied it obsessively for months. The thing, a perfect organism capable of cellular assimilation at the molecular level. It could absorb, replicate, and become any living tissue it contacted. The ultimate predator. The ultimate plague. As I crested the final ridge, a military helicopter roared overhead, settling down on the camp's landing pad. Armed men in white tactical gear poured out, weapons trained on the surrounding area. U.S. Army insignias adorned their shoulders, unexpected in this timeline. Something was already different from my briefing materials. I ducked behind a snow berm, watching as a tall, broad-shouldered man emerged last. Clearly the commanding officer, Colonel John McCready, according to the name tape on his jacket. He barked orders with the confidence of someone who expected to be obeyed without question. I had seconds to decide. Retreat and abort the mission, or approach and improvise. Before I could weigh my options further, a voice behind me said, "Hands where I can see them." Slowly, I turned to find the barrel of an M4 carbine inches from my face. The woman holding it wore the same tactical gear as the others. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Lieutenant Ellen Childs," she said. "Identify yourself. What are you doing at a restricted site?" My mind raced through cover stories. Dr. Samuel Grady, virologist. I was consulting with the Norwegian team. The lie came easily, close enough to the truth without revealing my actual origin. "Convenient timing," she replied, gesturing for me to stand. "Hands behind your head. The colonel will want to speak with you." She marched me down to the camp. The smell hit me first. Charred flesh mixed with something else. Something chemical. Something wrong. The soldiers were already setting up a perimeter, examining bodies partially extracted from the ice and snow. Colonel McCready approached with calculated strides, appraising me like a potential threat. "You're not on any manifest I've seen, Doctor. I arrived late, was supposed to join the team yesterday." Another easy lie. "Then you're the luckiest man in Antarctica. What exactly do you know about what happened here?" I chose my words carefully. "I know they were digging. I know they found something in the ice. Something old." McCready's eyes narrowed. "We've got orders to secure a biological specimen and any related research. Presidential level clearance. You're either an asset or a liability right now, Doctor. I can help. I know the facility layout. I know what signs to look for." McCready and Childs exchanged glances. I knew what they were thinking. An unexpected variable, but potentially useful. "Fine," McCready finally said. "You're with us for now. But you step out of line once, and I'll personally leave you out here for the storm that's coming." He pointed to dark clouds gathering on the horizon. Childs kept her rifle trained casually in my direction as we entered what remained of the main building. The damage was extensive. Not just fire, but violent destruction. Furniture shattered, walls torn open from within, blood spattered across the ceiling in impossible patterns. "What the hell could do this?" one of the younger soldiers whispered. I knew exactly what could, and I knew it wasn't contained. Couldn't be contained. The team spread out, securing rooms one by one. I followed Childs and McCready to what had been the research lab. The equipment was smashed, but one frozen sample container remained intact in a shattered cooling unit. McCready gestured for a technician to secure it. "Don't open that," I said instinctively. All eyes turned to me. "Why not?" "Doctor?" McCready asked, voice dropping dangerously. "Whatever they found, it's not inert. It responds to warmth, to living tissue." "And how exactly would you know that? I thought you hadn't started work here yet." "A mistake. I'd revealed too much." I backpedaled quickly. "It's in their preliminary reports. I was briefed before deployment." McCready studied me for several long seconds. "Secure it anyway," he finally ordered. "Triple containment protocols." As the team continued their sweep, I noticed Private Cooper staring strangely at the blood patterns on the floor. Something about his posture seemed wrong. Too still, too observant. When Childs called his name, he responded a fraction of a second too late. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. Later that evening, the team set up emergency quarters in the least damaged building. McCready gathered everyone for a briefing, laying out maps of the facility and surrounding terrain. "Our mission is straightforward," he stated. "Secure any biological specimens and research data, then extract. Estimated time on site, 48 hours maximum." "What about survivors?" asked Palmer, the communications specialist. "If there were any, they're long gone or dead," McCready replied flatly. "We're not here for rescue." I listened carefully, noting the unusual parameters of their mission. This wasn't standard recovery procedure. They were specifically after the specimen. Someone in this timeline already knew what was hidden here and wanted it captured. Alive. As McCready continued outlining sectors for tomorrow's search, I noticed Cooper again. He was sweating profusely despite the cold, his eyes darting between team members. When Windows, the youngest member of the team, sat beside him, Cooper shifted subtly away. The briefing concluded, and the team broke into watches for the night. I was paired with Childs, who made it clear she didn't trust me. "So, Doctor," she said as we patrolled the perimeter, "what really brought you to this frozen hellhole?" "The same thing that brought your team," I deflected. "Scientific curiosity." She scoffed. "We're not scientists. We're glorified couriers. Pick up package, deliver package. This isn't a normal package." "No?" Her eyebrow arched. "Enlighten me." Before I could answer, a scream tore through the night, coming from inside the barracks. We sprinted back, rifles raised. Inside, we found the team in chaos. Windows lay on the floor, clutching his bleeding arm. Cooper stood backed against the wall, eyes wide with terror. "He attacked me!" Windows shouted. "Cooper just went crazy!" "He's not Cooper," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "Not anymore." Every eye in the room turned to me. "What the hell are you talking about?" McCready demanded. Too late to backtrack now. I had to make a choice. Reveal what I knew and risk exposing myself, or stay silent and watch them all die one by one. "Whatever they found in the ice," I said carefully. "It's not just a specimen. It's still active. It can infect living tissue, replicate it perfectly." I pointed at Cooper. "Including humans." Cooper's face contorted with rage. "This is insane. I'm not infected with anything." But even as he protested, I saw his fingers elongating, bones cracking as they reformed into something inhuman. "Weapon free!" McCready shouted, raising his rifle. The thing that had been Cooper roared, a sound no human throat could produce. Its chest split open vertically, revealing rows of yellow teeth and writhing tentacles where organs should have been. Gunfire erupted in the confined space. The Cooper thing lunged forward with impossible speed, tentacles whipping out to ensnare the closest soldier. The unfortunate man screamed as his face began to melt where the creature touched him, his features running like wax as the assimilation process began. McCready grabbed a flamethrower from the equipment pile, igniting it with practiced efficiency. "Everyone back!" he bellowed before unleashing a torrent of fire. The creature shrieked, its flesh bubbling and popping in the intense heat. The smell was horrific. Burning meat and chemicals combined into something that made my eyes water. When it finally stopped moving, MacCready continued burning until nothing remained but charred residue. Silence fell, broken only by labored breathing and the crackle of cooling embers. "Somebody want to tell me what the hell just happened?" Palmer finally said, voice trembling. All eyes turned to me again. MacCready stepped forward, flamethrower still smoking in his hands. You knew exactly what would happen." His eyes narrowed. "Who are you really, Doctor? And don't give me that consulting bullshit again." The remaining soldiers formed a loose circle around me, weapons at the ready. I had seconds to decide how much truth to reveal. "I know what that thing is," I admitted. "It's an organism unlike anything on Earth. It assimilates other life forms perfectly, copying them down to the cellular level. Memories, behaviors, everything." "How long has Cooper been—" Childs couldn't finish the sentence. "I don't know, but it spreads. Fast. And anyone it's infected looks completely human until it chooses to reveal itself." The implications sank in. Every person in the room looked at their neighbors with new suspicion. "How do we know who's human?" Windows asked, voice barely above a whisper. "We don't," I replied. "That's the problem." MacCready's face hardened. "We need a test, some way to determine who's human and who's not." "I might know one," I said cautiously, "but you're not going to like it." As the storm outside intensified, rattling the damaged building around us, I saw the same thought reflected in every face. Any one of us could be the enemy. And in Antarctica's endless white wasteland, there was nowhere to run. The howling Antarctic wind battered our makeshift fortress as MacCready assembled everyone in the center of the common room. No one sat near anyone else. The revelation about Cooper had shattered whatever fragile trust existed among the team. Every glance was suspicious, every movement scrutinized. "All right, Doctor," MacCready said, flamethrower still cradled in his arms like a security blanket. "Let's hear this test of yours." I took a deep breath. The organism replaces its host cell by cell, but it's still essentially alien tissue. It reacts differently to certain stimuli. I glanced around the room. "We need blood samples from everyone. When exposed to extreme heat, human blood simply burns. This thing, it tries to escape." "That's your test? Setting our blood on fire?" Palmer scoffed. "You have a better idea?" Lieutenant Childs snapped. Her finger hadn't left the trigger of her rifle since Cooper's transformation. I noticed Windows trembling in the corner, still processing how close he'd come to being absorbed. The wound on his arm had been sanitized and bandaged, but the psychological damage ran deeper. "It's crude but effective," I continued. "We heat a sample from each person. Normal human blood has nowhere to go. The thing's cells will try to preserve themselves. They'll move away from the heat source, visibly." MacCready nodded slowly. "Knowles, get the medical kit. Windows, heat up some metal tools in the kitchen. Everyone stays in sight of at least 3 other people at all times." As the men moved to follow orders, Childs edged closer to me. "How do you really know all this?" she whispered, eyes never leaving the room. "I told you." "Cut the crap," she interrupted. "You knew exactly what would happen to Cooper. Nobody gets that kind of insight from preliminary reports." Before I could formulate a response, Palmer returned with the medical supplies. Windows followed with a hot needle held in tongs, its tip glowing orange. "Who's first?" MacCready asked. No one volunteered. "Fine, I'll go." He rolled up his sleeve and let Palmer extract a small vial of blood. We placed a drop on a petri dish. Windows approached with the heated needle, hands shaking slightly. "Steady," MacCready cautioned. The needle touched the blood sample. It sizzled, blackened, and remained inert. "Human," I confirmed. One by one, we tested each team member. Palmer, Norris, Fuchs, Knowles, Windows, Childs, all human. When my turn came, I hesitated only briefly before offering my arm. My blood reacted normally. Thankfully, interdimensional travel hadn't altered my basic biology. "We're all clean," Palmer said, relief evident in his voice. "For now," I cautioned. We still don't know how quickly it spreads, or if there are more infected outside. MacCready turned his attention to the storm raging beyond our walls. The weather keeps us locked in for at least 12 hours. Palmer, Norris, take first watch. Everyone else, get some rest. Tomorrow we sweep the Norwegian camp thoroughly. Sleep was impossible. I lay on a cot in the corner, staring at the ceiling, listening to the others breathing in the darkness. Every irregular inhale, every shift of blankets sounded threatening. The blood test had provided temporary reassurance, but doubt lingered. I must have dozed off eventually because I woke to Childs shaking my shoulder roughly. "Up, now," she hissed. "Something's happened." I followed her to the communications room where MacCready stood over Palmer's body. The communications specialist lay sprawled across the radio equipment, throat slit cleanly from ear to ear. "Who had access to this room?" MacCready demanded. "Anyone could have slipped in," Childs replied. "We've only got one working door lock in the whole place." Fuchs knelt beside the body, examining the wound. This wasn't the thing. This was a blade. He looked up grimly. Someone murdered him. The implications settled over us like a shroud. If Palmer had been killed by a knife rather than assimilated, it meant something worse. A human member of the team was actively sabotaging us. "Check the specimen," I said suddenly. We rushed to the makeshift lab where the Norwegian sample had been secured. The triple-sealed container lay on its side, empty. "Someone let it out," Windows whispered, backing away from the container. "On purpose." MacCready's face hardened into granite. Everybody back to the common room. Now. Once assembled, MacCready paced before us, flamethrower at the ready. "We've got two possibilities. Either someone here is the thing and killed Palmer to prevent him from radioing out, or someone here is working against the mission." "What mission exactly?" I asked. "You never fully explained why a military unit was sent to recover a biological specimen." MacCready's eyes locked with mine. "Classified." "Nothing's classified anymore," Childs countered. "Palmer's dead. The thing is loose. We deserve to know what we're dying for." After a long pause, MacCready nodded. "We're with USAMRIID, Biological Weapons Research. The Norwegian government alerted us when they lost contact with this station. Satellite imagery showed anomalies. We were dispatched to recover whatever they found for analysis." "You want to weaponize it," I said, unable to keep the horror from my voice. "That decision is above my pay grade, Doctor. We secure, we transport. That's it." Norris stepped forward. "This is insane. That thing killed Cooper. Probably killed the Norwegians. We need to destroy it, not preserve it." "Our orders—" "Your orders will get us all killed," Fuchs shouted, uncharacteristically emotional. "Or worse." The argument escalated until MacCready fired a short burst from his flamethrower into the ceiling. "Enough. Our priority is survival. We find the thing, we contain it, we figure out who's working against us." "How?" Windows asked. "The blood test only works if someone's already infected." "We watch each other," MacCready replied grimly. "No one goes anywhere alone." We split into pairs. MacCready with Childs, Norris with Fuchs, and Windows with me. Each pair was assigned a sector of the compound to search. Windows gripped his flamethrower with white knuckles as we checked room after room. "You think we're going to make it out of here?" he asked quietly. "Focus on the search," I deflected. "No, seriously. You know more about this thing than anyone. What are our actual chances?" I paused, considering how much hope to offer. "If we're smart and careful, we have a chance." "But you don't believe that," he said, surprisingly perceptive. Before I could respond, a scream echoed through the facility, high-pitched, abruptly cut short. We sprinted toward the source, meeting MacCready and Childs at an intersection. "Fuchs and Norris," Childs explained as we continued running. We found them in what remained of the Norwegian lab. Norris stood backed against equipment cabinets, face twisted in horror. On the floor lay what used to be Fuchs. His body split open from sternum to pelvis, ribs splayed outward like bloody fingers reaching for help. "It happened so fast," Norris stammered. "He was checking samples and then just exploded." "Everyone back," McCready ordered, raising his flamethrower. Norris raised his hands. "It's not me! I was across the room when it happened." "The blood test," I reminded McCready. "We need to be sure." Norris extended his arm willingly. "Do it. I'm clean." Childs extracted the blood sample while Windows heated a scalpel blade. We watched intently as the hot metal approached the droplet. The blood sample remained still for a moment, then suddenly leaped away from the heat, dividing into smaller droplets that scurried across the petri dish like tiny insects. "Burn it!" I shouted. McCready reacted instantly, but Norris, or what wore his form, moved faster. His face split horizontally, revealing rows of jagged teeth. His head detached, sprouting spider-like legs from the neck stump, and scuttled across the floor toward the ventilation shaft. Windows panicked, firing his flamethrower wildly. The stream of fire caught the creature mid-escape, igniting it in a screaming ball of flames. The stench of burning alien flesh filled the room, acrid and chemical. The larger portion of Norris's body convulsed, chest bursting open to reveal a gaping maw lined with teeth. Tentacles shot out toward Childs, who barely dodged before McCready doused the entire mass in fire. We watched in horrified silence as the thing that had been Norris burned, its inhuman screams gradually fading. "How?" Windows finally asked. "Norris passed the blood test earlier. He must have been infected after," Childs suggested. "Or the test isn't foolproof," I admitted reluctantly. "Maybe it can adapt." McCready's expression darkened further. "If we can't trust the test, we can't trust each other." The logic was undeniable. Without a reliable method to identify the infected, paranoia would consume us. We were enemies to each other now, each person a potential threat. "There's another option," I said slowly. "The Norwegians found the original crash site. If we can locate their records, maybe there's information about how to detect it more effectively. You want us to go out there, in this?" Childs gestured toward the windows where the blizzard still raged unabated. "The storm's weakening," McCready noted. "First light, we make for the Norwegian camp." That night was the longest of my life. We sat in a circle in the common room, flamethrowers ready, watching each other with unblinking vigilance. No one slept, no one spoke. The only sounds were the wind outside and our shallow, anxious breathing. By dawn, the storm had diminished to gusty flurries. We suited up in thermal gear and ventured outside, each person maintaining distance from the others. The sun reflected blindingly off the fresh snow as we trudged toward the Norwegian facility. The crashed helicopter was our first landmark, twisted metal half buried in snowdrift. Beyond it lay the outpost proper, most structures still standing despite the fire damage. "We split up, we cover more ground," McCready said, then immediately reconsidered. "Scratch that. We stay together." "Smart move," I agreed. We moved through the compound methodically, checking each building. The main research facility yielded only charred equipment and melted ice samples. But in what appeared to be the camp leader's office, Windows discovered a locked metal case. McCready pried it open to reveal a leather-bound journal, several data drives, and a map marked with coordinates. "This is it," I said, examining the journal. "They're records of the excavation." The journal's entries detailed the discovery: a spacecraft buried for thousands of years, and within it, a passenger frozen in ice. The Norwegians had extracted the ice block containing the organism and transported it back to their facility for thawing and study, their fatal mistake. But it was the final pages that caught my attention. Crude drawings of cellular structures, notes about observed behaviors, and importantly, a chemical compound formula. "What is it?" Childs asked. "A test, a real one." I pointed to the formula. "This compound reacts specifically to the thing's unique cellular structure. If we can synthesize it—" "Can you make it?" McCready interrupted. I studied the chemical notation. "Yes, with the right equipment. Which we have back at our base," Windows added hopefully. McCready nodded. "Let's move. Daylight's burning." As we exited the building, a shadow moved at the periphery of my vision. I turned just in time to see a figure duck behind a distant structure. "Contact," I whispered, gesturing subtly. McCready spotted it too. "Childs, Windows, circle left. We'll flush it out." We split into two groups, approaching the position cautiously. As we rounded the corner, we found fresh footprints leading away from the building toward the vast Antarctic plateau. Another survivor? Windows suggested. I followed the tracks with my eyes, noticing how they led toward a particular rock formation in the distance. No. The journal mentioned something else. The spacecraft. MacReady examined the map from the case, comparing it to the terrain. Those coordinates match this region. He pointed to the rock formation. That's not natural. That's the crash site. The implication was clear. Whatever we had been tracking was headed toward the original source, perhaps drawn back to it by some alien instinct. We should follow, I said. Childs looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Follow an alien shapeshifter to its spaceship? Are you insane? If it's returning to the crash site, there might be more we can learn. More samples. More information. I met MacReady's gaze. Information your employers would find valuable. It was a calculated appeal to his mission parameters, and it worked. We follow, MacReady decided, but we stay alert. First sign of trouble, we burn everything and retreat. As we set off across the plateau, following the steadily disappearing footprints, I felt a growing sense of dread. We were walking into the heart of the mystery now, toward a place where something not of this earth had lain dormant for millennia before awakening to unleash horror. What we would find there could change everything, or end everything. And I still hadn't told them the most important truth, that in exactly 1 year from now, if the thing escaped Antarctica, this entire world would collapse as the infection spread exponentially across continents. Billions would die. Humanity would cease to exist. And the thing would move on, perhaps finding ways to cross dimensions as I had, spreading its perfect destruction across the multiverse. I glanced at the journal in my pack. Within it lay the formula for the test, yes, but also something else I hadn't shared. The Norwegians had discovered the thing's one true vulnerability, a weakness so specific that it had to be engineered precisely. The question was, could I trust any of these people with that knowledge? Even MacReady, with his steely determination and apparent honesty, served masters who sought to weaponize this horror. As we approached the dark shape protruding from the ice ahead, I made my decision: trust no one, complete the mission alone, save not just this world, but all worlds. The ancient spacecraft loomed before us, its alien architecture partially exposed by excavation. The thing had come home. The alien spacecraft jutted from the ice like an obsidian wound in Antarctica's pristine white flesh. Up close, its architecture defied human engineering principles. Angles that seemed to bend in impossible directions. Surfaces that absorbed light rather than reflected it. The excavation site around it showed signs of the Norwegians' careful work, now abandoned. MacReady held up his fist, signaling us to halt. "Windows, Childs, secure the perimeter. Doctor, with me." I followed MacReady toward the exposed entrance, a jagged tear in the craft's hull. The tracks we'd been following led directly inside. My breath condensed in the frigid air as we approached, creating ghostly plumes that dissipated in seconds. "You know more than you're telling us," MacReady said quietly, eyes fixed on the dark opening ahead. "What makes you say that?" "The way you look at that thing. Not with fear, with recognition." He turned to face me fully. "Last chance for honesty, Doctor. What are we really dealing with here?" I weighed my options carefully. An organism that represents the perfect evolutionary endpoint. It doesn't just copy appearances. It absorbs memories, behaviors, everything. A single cell could potentially infect an entire planet if given enough time. MacReady processed this silently before asking, "And how do you know all this?" Before I could formulate an answer, Childs called out from 20 yards away. "Movement inside!" We snapped to attention, weapons raised toward the spacecraft's entrance. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then a figure emerged, human in shape, wearing tattered Norwegian expedition gear. "Hold your fire," MacReady ordered, though his finger remained poised on the flamethrower's trigger. The figure staggered forward, hands raised. It was a man, mid-40s, with a wild beard and haunted eyes. When he spoke, his voice was rough from disuse. "Americans? Thank God." "Identify yourself," MacReady demanded. "Dr. Lars Pedersen, Norwegian research team." His English carried a heavy accent. "I've been hiding, since it happened." "Approached slowly," I warned MacReady. He could be one of them. Pedersen's eyes widened. You know? About the thing? MacReady kept his flamethrower trained on the Norwegian. We know enough. How'd you survive when everyone else died? I was at secondary camp when the outbreak began. Returned to find... His eyes clouded with remembered horror. I've been tracking it, studying it, trying to find a way to destroy it completely. The blood test, I prompted. Would you submit to it? The heated blood? Pedersen shook his head. Unreliable. It's learned to control its cellular response. I've developed something better. He reached slowly into his pocket, producing a small vial of amber liquid. This compound forces a reaction at the molecular level. No disguise can withstand it. I recognized the formula from the journal, the same one I'd noticed but hadn't fully shared with the others. We'll all take the test, MacReady decided. Starting with you, Dr. Pedersen. The Norwegian nodded, rolling up his sleeve without hesitation. I prepared a syringe with the compound, acutely aware of everyone watching my movements. If Pedersen was the thing, this would be the moment of truth. I injected a small amount into his forearm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Pedersen winced as the skin around the injection site reddened slightly. A normal human inflammatory response. Your turn, MacReady said to me. I submitted to the test, followed by MacReady himself, then Windows and Childs when they rejoined us. All human, according to Pedersen's formula. Now what? Childs asked, rubbing her arm where the injection had stung. Now we go inside, Pedersen said grimly. I've found something you need to see. The interior of the spacecraft was both alien and oddly familiar, like concepts from human architecture interpreted through an incomprehensible mind. Pedersen led us down sloping corridors that seemed to contract and expand subtly with temperature changes. The ship crash-landed here approximately 100,000 years ago, he explained. The pilot was transporting the organism as a specimen, or a weapon. From what we've pieced together, it broke containment and infected the pilot. The ship crashed during the struggle. We emerged into a larger chamber dominated by what appeared to be a navigation console. Pedersen moved to a section of the wall covered in symbols and pressed a sequence. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a sealed container. The Norwegians didn't find just one sample, I realized aloud. No. Pedersen's expression was solemn. This is different, purer. The original strain, untouched by assimilation processes. My colleagues called it the Genesis sample. MacReady's eyes narrowed with interest. And what can this Genesis sample do that the other one can't? It's not what it can do. It's what we can learn from it. Pedersen caressed the container almost reverently. This is the purest form of the organism, before it began adapting to Earth biology. Study it, and we might understand how to defeat it completely. I watched the interaction with growing unease. Something about Pedersen's demeanor felt wrong. Too eager, too familiar with the alien technology. You seem very comfortable here, I observed casually, edging closer to the exit. Pedersen's smile didn't reach his eyes. I've had time to explore, to understand, and survive, alone, against an organism that hunts and assimilates perfectly, Childs added, catching my suspicion. Convenient. The Norwegian's expression hardened. You question my humanity after I provided the test that proved it? A test you could have engineered to create false negatives, I countered. Tension crackled through the chamber. MacReady and Windows shifted positions, flamethrowers raised slightly. I don't like this, MacReady, Windows muttered. Pedersen's face underwent a subtle change, not physical, but something in his eyes shifted. You Americans, he said softly. Always so paranoid. The attack came without warning. Pedersen's arm elongated grotesquely, fingers extending into barbed tentacles that whipped toward MacReady. The colonel reacted instantly, unleashing a stream of fire that engulfed the Norwegian. But instead of burning, Pedersen's form seemed to absorb the flames, incorporating them into his mutating body. His chest cavity opened like a blooming flower of teeth and sinew, the rib cage inverting to form a cage around the still burning fire. Run! I shouted, but Windows was already caught, Pedersen's lower body dissolving into a mass of writhing tentacles that ensnared the young soldier's legs. Childs grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the corridor as MacReady continued blasting ineffectively with his flamethrower. Windows's screams echoed behind us as we fled. The formula didn't work, Childs panted as we raced through alien corridors. It did, I replied. That wasn't Pedersen. It was something worse. The thing evolved to resist our testing methods. We emerged into the Antarctic sunlight, temporarily blinding after the ship's darkness. MacReady stumbled out seconds later, his flamethrower depleted. "Windows?" Childs asked. MacReady's grim expression told us everything. "We need to destroy the ship," I said urgently. "That thing inside, the Genesis sample. If it escapes..." "With what?" MacReady demanded. "In case you didn't notice, fire doesn't work anymore." "Not regular fire," I agreed. But the Norwegians discovered something else. I pulled out the journal, flipping to the final pages I'd kept to myself. Thermite charges, placed strategically within the structure, hot enough to melt through the alien alloys. Childs stared at me. "You knew about this? And waited until now?" "I wasn't sure who to trust," I admitted. "But now we don't have a choice. The thing is evolving faster than I've ever seen. If it assimilates the Genesis sample and escapes containment, the whole world's infected," MacReady finished. "Worse," I said gravely. "In my timeline..." I stopped, realizing my slip. "Your what?" Childs's eyes narrowed. No point hiding it now. "I'm not from your world. I'm from a parallel dimension. Where I come from, we study alternate timelines, extract samples before divergence points." MacReady's laugh was hollow. "Parallel dimensions. Of course. Why not?" "That's why you know so much," Childs realized. "You've seen this before." "Not exactly this, but similar enough." I took a deep breath. "In 1 year from today, if that thing escapes Antarctica, it will have infected 83% of all life on Earth. Humanity will be functionally extinct. Billions dead." The revelation hung in the cold air between us. "So, what do we do?" MacReady finally asked, remarkably calm given the circumstances. "The Norwegians stored emergency supplies in a cache near the excavation site." I pointed to a small marker flag barely visible in the distance, including thermite charges. We retrieved the supplies and returned to the spacecraft with grim determination. The thing hadn't emerged yet, perhaps still absorbing and incorporating Windows into its mass. We set the charges at key structural points identified in the Norwegian research. As MacReady placed the final charge, a sound like tearing metal erupted from the ship's entrance. The thing that had been Pedersen emerged, but it was barely recognizable now. A grotesque amalgamation of Pedersen, Windows, and something utterly alien. Multiple heads sprouted from a central mass, limbs jutted at impossible angles, and what might have been a face contorted with inhuman rage. "Now or never," MacReady said, thumb hovering over the detonator. The thing charged, moving across the snow with terrifying speed. Childs stepped forward, emptying her rifle into the oncoming horror. The bullets tore chunks from its mass, but it kept coming, regenerating even as it attacked. MacReady shoved me aside. "Get clear!" he shouted, standing his ground as the creature closed in. "MacReady!" Childs screamed. The colonel stood unflinching as the thing reached him. At the last possible moment, he pressed the detonator. The charges ignited with a blinding flash, followed by a roar that shook the ice beneath our feet. The spacecraft and everything near it, including MacReady and the thing, disappeared in a column of white-hot flame that melted a 50-foot crater into the ancient ice. Chunks of burning debris rained down around us as Childs and I staggered back from the intense heat. When the initial blast subsided, nothing remained but a smoldering pit, molten metal cooling rapidly in the sub-zero temperatures. "He saved us," Childs whispered, her stoic demeanor cracking for the first time. "He saved everyone," I corrected quietly. We trudged back toward the outpost in silence, the weight of MacReady's sacrifice heavy between us. The storm had completely cleared, revealing the vast Antarctic emptiness stretching to the horizon in all directions. At the outpost, we gathered what supplies remained and prepared the helicopter for evacuation. "What will you tell them?" I asked as Childs ran pre-flight checks. "The truth, as much as they'll believe." She glanced at me, What about you? Going back to your dimension? I shook my head. My mission parameters have changed. Her eyebrow arched questioningly. I was sent to collect a sample of the thing, bring it back for study. I gestured to the empty vial where the Genesis sample would have gone. I've decided that's a monumentally stupid idea. Childs actually smiled at that. So you're staying in this timeline? For now. I looked out across the Antarctic wasteland. There's work to do here. What kind of work? Prevention. I pulled out the Norwegian journal. This contains everything we know about the thing. Its biology, its weaknesses. In 1 year, Russian scientists at Vostok Station will discover another fragment of the spacecraft. They'll thaw their own sample without proper containment. Childs' eyes widened. And it happens all over again. I nodded grimly. Unless someone stops it. You realize how insane this sounds? She said. Parallel dimensions? Future catastrophes? You expect me to help you convince the world based on that? Not the world. Just the right people. I pulled out a folded paper from my pocket, a list of names and dates I'd compiled from the journal and my own knowledge. These scientists, military personnel, government officials, they're the ones who'll be positioned to contain the next outbreak. We warn them, prepare them. Child studied the list, expression unreadable. Finally, she looked up. And if we fail, then billions die, and the thing spreads across this world, and eventually to others. She was silent for a long moment, the helicopter's rotors spinning up to speed behind us. You coming or not, Doctor? I climbed aboard, securing the journal as Childs lifted off. The outpost dwindled beneath us, a tiny human footprint in the vast white wilderness. One last thing, I said as we headed north. If we're going to save this world, you need to know everything. I hesitated, then continued. In my timeline, there's a theoretical physicist named Ellen Ripley working on containment technology, specifically designed for organisms like the thing. So? So your counterpart in my world could be invaluable here. The thinking is the same. The instincts are the same. You already proved that. I met her eyes. Lieutenant Ellen Childs, meet your parallel self's research. You're going to become the world's foremost expert on interdimensional quarantine procedures. For the first time, genuine shock registered on her face. Ripley? That's me in your world? A version of you, yes. Different life. Same core person. She absorbed this, then straightened her shoulders with new resolve. Well, Dr. Grady, looks like we've got work to do. As the helicopter carried us towards civilization and the uncertain future beyond, I thought about MacReady's sacrifice, about the Norwegian team, about all the alternate timelines where the thing had won or would win. One version of reality where humanity survived was better than none. The frozen wastes of Antarctica fell away behind us, but I knew we would return. The thing was never truly gone. Fragments of it would always remain, buried in the ice, waiting for warmth and life to consume. Our job now was to make sure it stayed buried, in this timeline and across all possible futures. Because if a single cell of it ever reached my home dimension, the infection wouldn't just destroy one world. It would spread across the entire multiverse, universe by universe, dimension by dimension, until nothing remained but perfect, empty assimilation. I had come to steal a specimen. I stayed to save a world. And perhaps, in doing so, I would save all worlds. The journal rested heavily in my lap as we flew north. The accumulated knowledge of those who had fought and died to understand this perfect organism. Within its pages lay our only hope, the formula for the thermite compound that burned hot enough to destroy the thing completely, the early warning signs of infection, and the locations of other crash fragments scattered across the globe. First stop, Washington, D.C., Childs said over the helicopter's comm system. Hope you're ready to sound crazy to a lot of important people. I smiled grimly. After what we've seen, crazy is relative. The Antarctic coast appeared on the horizon, the first step on our long journey to prevent an apocalypse that only we knew was coming. Behind us, smoke still rose from what remained of Outpost 31, a funeral pyre for those who had given everything to stop the perfect enemy. And somewhere in the endless white, Perhaps a single cell waited, perfectly preserved in the ice, for its next chance at life. But this time, we would be ready.